Hello, Marcel. Good to see ya. Just getting set up to do my live show, buddy. Stick around. I literally just came on, guys. Just getting things started up. Sending out the invites. Show starts at 8 o'clock Eastern. I just like to come in and hang out, say hello, get everyone gathered beforehand, listen to a bit of tunes. So, guys, pull up a seat, get comfy. Don't forget to love the stream and share it. Let's get the people around and let's get the conversation going on stuff. There we go, guys. Thank you so much for showing up, guys. Thank you for the love. Keep hitting that like button and share the stream, guys. Just getting set up. I apologize that I haven't done my live over the holidays. It was just a bit of a rough go there. I was sick and whatnot, so it was kicking back, relaxing, trying to take care of myself during the holidays. And the girlfriend, of course, was sick as well, so just taking care of each other and trying to get through that. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope everyone's had a good week. Hopefully, the weekend's going good for you guys. We made it through another week, everyone. The amount of political stuff right now is off the charts. And we're going to get into that stuff today. So stick around and be a part of the conversation if you'd like. Really appreciate all the love and support, guys. Again, I do apologize. I haven't been around. I did mean to get back at it again last week, but just need a bit more time to kind of recover and get myself back to the point of being able to do this. So here we are. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. You guys are fantastic. How you guys doing out there? How was your week? How's your weekend going? If you want to come up, say hi. Come on up and say hi. And 8 o'clock we'll get going. But for now, if you want to come up, by all means, come up, say hi, and let me know what's going on in your area. I can turn down my music if it's a little loud, guys. VA, good to see you. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate it. Guys, you are fantastic. Thank you so much, Tammy, for all the love. I see that coming in. Miss Radical as well. Thank you so much for all the love. Appreciate it, guys. You guys are so fantastic. Don't forget to hit that like button, guys, and get the word out that we're here. Made it through another week. Zen, good to see you. Thanks for coming. I'm sorry I took off so quick out of that conversation earlier today. It was just kind of wanted to try and bolster you. I think I kind of flopped on that one, but I think you were doing great, and I'm sorry that people were talking over you so much like they were. Jax, thanks for coming. Good to see you. Hopefully your week has been good and the weekend's going good, guys. Who else we got going on? Marcel. Marcel, I'm glad you made it. I don't think you've made it to a live that I've done yet. So I'm happy to see you here. Hopefully hopefully you'll have some input there, whether in the comments or if you decide to come up a little bit. Really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Don't forget to share the live. Let people know that we're gathering. We're going to be having conversation. Thanks so much, Zen. Like I said, I tried. I was a little off my game, I think, earlier. But mention is a really big word. Been to a protest before. I'm just jumping on the bandwagon. Hoping it'll help me sell some albums, 'cause I gotta blow albums if I wanna make money. The only thing that will ever make me happy, it was written in me when I was a child. Money makes the world go round, so we're here today to stop the world turning and introduce a new way of thinking. People over profit, love over greed. Raise your hands and shake 'em with me. That's what we're here for, guys. I love this song. We're here to make a difference. We're here to stop the world from turning. We know what makes the world go round, it's money, and we're here to stop that. We're here to change things. That's what it's about. So, guys, thanks for joining. Remember, get the live out there. Let people know we're here and going to be having the conversations. If you haven't been here before, I am the Progressive Moose. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. It's in the name. I'm a progressive, and we will be talking about politics. We'll be talking about things that we're seeing across Canada and some global stuff, really. When you get into the trade and whatnot with United States, upcoming Trump presidency, and the nonsense that is Trump. Um, It'll definitely be a part of the conversation. Hopefully, it won't take up too much because I just don't like spending time on him. But he is relevant to our politics in Canada and what we're seeing. So I'm sure his name will definitely come up. And shake him with me. Join the fight. We can change the world tonight. I don't think we'll change the world tonight, guys, but we'll at least have a good conversation and do our little part that we can here on TikTok together. What else do I got on here? I always love having music that has meaning behind it. Guys, if you haven't heard of them yet, if you've been here, you've heard the songs. But if you haven't, Beans on Toast is the name of the band. They're a fantastic British activist band. They make great music. Love listening to their stuff. It gets me hyped up, gets me in the mood to want to make a change. So go check them out when you guys get a chance. Fantastic stuff. All right, guys. We got 10 minutes till go time. What's going on out there? Anybody want to come up, say hi? Anyone got some news they want to share from their area or province? Let's throw it in there quick, guys. Request to come up, and I'll give you the floor. Let us know what's going on if there's something important you want to share. Let's get the word out there on the stuff that's important from a local level, provincial. Oh, I'm sure a lot of you probably already seen the headline minimum as well. We will be talking about the CBC investigation that has busted grocery companies and brought some info out on how they're messing with prices on meat. They're not weighing it properly, they're weighing it with the packaging, so we're actually paying more than what we should be. We're not getting the amount of meat we're supposed to be getting in that packaging. Granted, there is ongoing discussion about it, so it might not actually be a full on huge thing, but the evidence is damning, especially when it comes to law. So keep that in mind. Loblaws and these other companies too. Uh, they they've already been caught with their hand in the cookie jar, just like I said in my video. Um, Look at the bread fixing, right? We know they have a history of this sort of shit. So here we are. We found some more. Yeah, probable falls, absolutely, and that's what I'm saying, right? Like that adds up over time. Yeah, it might be a small percentage, but when we continue to pay that over and over and over again, but yet conservatives, sorry, I'm getting into things already, but yet the conservatives would tell you it's a fucking carbon tax when the carbon tax is cents or pennies compared to, stuff like this where the corporate greed is essentially charging us that 4 to 11% more. Zen, how you doing?
I'm good. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, Urban and I were just talking about how we were going to start going to the butcher instead.
Hmm.
We never did go to well, we'd go every once in a while, but not as often, right? But I said, it just doesn't make any sense anymore. Like, especially for us, because I don't eat meat, and so it's just him. Why would I
Hmm.
buy a package of, six pork chops, and of course we're getting a better cut of meat anyway.
Oh, absolutely. Uh,
But that's going for most things though is that we've decided, yeah, we're going to try to shop locally. We're going to
yep,
stick to Canadian products if we can.
yep. Just to throw in there too, and you're absolutely right that your farmers markets guys, your small business kind of
Yep.
setups, where they'll do kind of event and have the different booths sort of stuff. Might not be, farmers market specifically, but
Right.
that sort of stuff. And we do have to watch. That's actually something too that the CBC uncovered. I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago, where there are people that do the farmers markets as vendors, but they're actually buying corporate grown produce
Yes. Yes.
and trying to say it's their own. A lot of them were sloppy enough to not even take the damn stickers off
Exactly.
from
That's
the.
what we noticed too. We did. We
Yeah,
saw the stickers on them, and I'm like, what? Yeah,
yeah.
we
So,
prefer to go straight to the source if we can. Like, we have a lot of farmers in this area that we are lucky enough to have stands. So,
hmm,
but we don't like we both don't typically eat a lot of meat. So, you know, um, it's the veggies and stuff. Unfortunately, when winter hits here, it's we don't even have the vendors. So our
yeah,
our
no, and
farmers
it's the
markets
same
are
here.
closed. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're lucky enough where I'm at. We've got a small Mennonite community kicking around. And there's a butcher off down the highway that a lot of people have started to go to because they're like you said. I mean, it's really good cuts for a decent price.
Right.
Uh, but people close to me, they've got two growing dogs that don't stop eating, and
Yeah.
they want to do more of the natural way of doing it, right? So they actually get the edible scraps from the butcher there
Right.
for the dogs, and they
Yep.
pay. I think they're paying like $20 for a fair sized box of just the niblets, so to speak, and
Yep.
so it's definitely a better way to go as long as we have the resources in your local area to do so,
Right.
right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and this is the first time I've actually been somewhere where I don't have a big freezer, so um, my freezer is completely filled right now. But yeah, when winter hits, it's tough. Like um, it's paying attention to like where you're getting your vegetables from, right?
Absolutely.
But I do find that we do tend to uh, carb up in the winter time. So we
Yeah.
find, yeah, we that's when we tend to go to the cupboard foods.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I find myself like I'm bad for, me and the girlfriend would be sitting watching a movie or, we watched through The Walking Dead more recently and found ourselves sitting there and one of us would go to the store and pick up snacks because we just want to sit there and just snack out on
Yep.
garbage.
Hmm. Yep.
Hey,
Um,
Jax.
Hi. My house is a little noisy, so I just came up to offer Zen a solution for her freezer. You can get, those bar size fridges? You can actually get freezers that size.
Oh,
Mhm.
really?
Yeah, we used to have one when we lived in Hamilton, and it would be like perfect for the two of you. And it's
Really?
just like a bar fridge, except for it's a freezer.
Or
Oh,
even an apartment size freezer. That's what I have because I mean I'm in an apartment. So they're like
yeah.
honestly, they look like they're smaller than half the size, but by the time you pack things in, you probably got about half the amount you would in a normal sized fridge.
Yeah, we left one behind at the last place that was just over I guess in between an apartment size and a regular size. But the problem is like we literally live in one room. Like it's a loft, so
Mm.
like our bedroom is in the middle of our apartment.
Okay.
It's so we really don't have a lot of room. So yeah, yeah,
That's why I was
a
thinking
bar
bar
size
size would be nice.
might, yeah. It's, you know what? It's even just trying to figure out if we have enough outlets for things, right? Like that's how,
Yeah.
space wise we are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, like I'm in a two bedroom, and for the cost of doing laundry, whether at the laundromat or even the facilities here, like we actually have, it's a little washer meant for like college students. But
Okay.
you hook it up to your faucet, it's got a pump in it so you can drain the water, and it's just a spin dry and you hang your clothes.
I think I've seen those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
No,
do
You
we
have
do
to
fantastic.
be
have, yeah,
careful
like,
with those.
yeah,
If it's
we,
in your lease that you can't install one without permission, don't do
Okay.
it, right?
yeah.
Because if it does happen to leak, then you're 100% liable.
Yeah,
So that would
absolutely.
be
Yeah.
your belongings and the building, right?
I
The
know a lot of
insurance would
people
come
that
after you.
do those with, they do it in the bathtub.
Yep, that's what we
Yeah.
do. We do it in the
Yeah.
bathtub. Yeah. You just
Yeah.
have to make sure, like when I do it, I make sure because they don't sit quite right because your bathtub is a little curved on the
Right.
bottom normally.
Right.
So you just got to kind of move it around and find that kind of more more stable ground.
Right.
Uh, but I
Yeah.
mean, it does
No.
fantastic. So
I unfortunately have a lot of laundry, so we go to the laundromat.
yeah,
I have a thing for blankets, and yeah, and we have cats. So yeah, we go to the laundromat once a week.
I
yeah,
hate the laundromat.
Oh, I love it.
right.
I love it.
I
I
think the
I
do.
only thing worse than a laundromat, though, is an apartment laundry room.
Well, that's
Yes,
what
Like in an
yeah, we
apartment
have that
building.
here. We
yeah.
have one washer, one dryer in the basement, and there's no way I'm going up and down that many stairs, first of all. And and to carry all my laundry up and down. No, not with my knees, forget it. So I love the laundromat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go. All right, guys, just a reminder, we're 2 minutes, well, now a minute to go time, so don't forget to
Okay.
like the stream and get the shares going. Let people know we're
Share it
here.
out.
Really appreciate all the love you guys have been showing. Really
I
do
have
appreciate
not
it.
been keeping up on my local politics, so I have no idea what's actually happening around here. Um, I do. I've been in a lot of lives lately where a lot of it is basically talking about the 51st state and all that stuff. But yeah, I haven't been keeping up in my local.
Okay. Yeah, and it's hard because I mean that's essentially what's driving media right now is, the Canada United States relations, Trump's nonsense. Um, and I mean, not just North America, but around the world at this point, because now he's starting to say, he wants to buy Greenland and
Yeah,
stuff
well,
like that. But
we know that the reason why he wants Greenland and Panama and us is for shipping, right? It's
and
for
that's where it's yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. There is some hidden agendas behind some of
of
the
course,
stuff that he says.
right?
Um, how he goes about saying it is definitely unhinged, in my opinion, for
Yeah.
lack of better words. But
Oh yeah.
here we go. Alrighty, guys. So it's 8 o'clock. Let's jump into, I guess, the news and the politics. If you're here, welcome. I am the Progressive Moose. I live in Northern Ontario, Canada. I follow politics pretty closely. I do my best to follow the provinces the best that I can. But it's sometimes hard to keep track of across Canada, so I do my best. Yeah, so it's been a while since I think it's been about 3 weeks to a month since I've done my live. So a lot has come out, guys, and the biggest thing, of course, that we've seen come out in the news is Justin Trudeau on January 6th decided to announce he will be stepping down as the leader of the Liberal Party. So that is going to be moving forward the race for the leadership. There have been different people already come out, kind of throw their hats in the ring, so to speak. Some people have actually made bids for their leadership position. Others have only talked about it and haven't actually put their bid in. So we're going to break that down a little bit, as well as some other information in terms of the Liberal leadership race. As well, we're going to talk about the opposition parties, what they've had to say um, as a result of this, kind of where they're sitting politically, how things are looking in terms of an election, what's the likelihood and when. There's a lot to unpack politically, guys. So buckle up, and we'll do our best as we're here, guys. If you have something to add to the conversation or what I'm saying, send me a request to come up. I might not see right away, but if you do have a point to put in there, I'd love to hear it. That's what this is about, us all coming together, getting the information, putting the information out there so people have it and are better informed on what's going on the ground in politics and other stuff. I mean, protests, strikes, of course. We were close to having a strike here in Ontario. It was averted. They came to an agreement, so that's good to see, especially given the history lately of how many different places have strike because companies just want to be, for lack of better words, dipshits. I apologize for the language, but that's how I see them. Anywho, so yeah, with that, guys, let's get into what's going on with the Liberals. So Justin Trudeau's decided to step down. He definitely doesn't matter where you guys stand politically. He did not have the numbers. He doesn't have the support within his own party, let alone the voters. Right? His numbers are down, and guys, the biggest thing when it comes to the Liberals' numbers being low, in my opinion, the biggest thing is voter exhaustion, right? We saw it with Stephen Harper. Everybody was tired of Stephen Harper. Yeah, he had a hell of a lot that he did that hurt us in a lot of ways. Absolutely. So, absolutely reason for that. But this is what happens in Canadian politics. You have somebody in power for long enough, the voters just get tired regardless, right? And they just want to see the change. So, it's the exhaustion, it's getting tired of the same stuff. Um, yes, the Liberals have had some quote unquote scandals throughout their leadership that they've had, right? We saw it with the We scandal. We saw it, I wouldn't necessarily say scandal, but we saw where really there was misappropriation of funds towards contractors um, for that app that they were trying to make. So definitely lack of oversight in that sense as well. Um, and again, I mean, conservatives weren't any better in that sense. But there were those shortfalls when it comes to Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party being in power like they have been. There have been the issues. There have been criticisms. So but there's also a lot of credit. As of right now, there are some people, and I'm going to kind of break down each person the best that I can on the knowledge that I have. So I apologize if you guys have something to add to one of the people that I mentioned. By all means, type it, or if you want to come up and talk about them, uh, send the request, and I'll have you up if you got more info. So we have first and foremost Sandra Chandra Arya. I apologize if I butcher that name. Um, so first person to throw their hat in the leadership race. They've been an MP since 2015 in the Ottawa suburbs. Um, the biggest issue there with this candidate is does not believe that he needs to speak French to be prime minister. Guys, like if you're gonna be in charge, you got to be able to speak to everyone. That's one thing where you really can't pass the buck. Um, we're we're a multicultural country. We're bilingual country. Bare minimum, know some French. Hell, I will give credit to anyone in power that is not indigenous but can get up on a podium and speak an indigenous language on top of French or other than French. I would love to see that. I do love seeing it. But bare minimum, you got to be bilingual with French if you're going to be in a position of power, especially prime minister running the country. Okay. Also is against the carbon pricing system. So kind of away from the liberal party kind of platform when it comes to the carbon tax, and wants to abolish the monarchy. Uh, the monarchy itself, guys, when it comes to the monarchy, I'm down with cutting ties with the monarchy. I realize there are actual reasons and debates that can be had on that topic, but at this point, in this day and age in the world, I honestly just don't think we should have ties with a monarchy, and I don't think any quote unquote Commonwealth country should. I think it's time for Britain to finally cut ties and for the monarchy to say, hey, listen, you know what? It's time to let go of that shit. Again, I apologize for my language, but this is how I am. Uh, Jax, thanks for coming back up. You got something to add?
You know, I very rarely disagree with you. Very rarely. My question for you.
Hmm.
So I have two reasons why we should absolutely never cut our ties.
Okay.
Never. The first argument would be money, right? We all want to be financially responsible in Canada, right?
Hmm.
The cost that it costs us per year, per Canadian, to keep the monarchy is dollars compared to what it would be for us to maintain a head of state like the President of the United States. So we're actually saving money by not switching the system.
Well, and it's not even a matter of so when I say that, I'm not meaning like to switch our system. We would keep the same government system, right?
Yeah,
Like I'm not talking
right,
about going to a republic, just meaning in terms of like we're still technically a colony of the United Kingdom,
right.
right?
But
Uh,
being an independent country would actually cost us more
no,
per
and
person.
you're right about that, absolutely. Um,
So it seems like a very small thing to have the king or queen on our money, because that's about as much influence as they do have on us,
mhm.
to save a buck. And I'm okay with saving a buck. But my second reason is the treaties. And because of the treaties, we can never cut ties
You know what?
because
And
you're
yeah,
killing our treaties and we won't allow it. And the
no,
courts won't allow it.
and you're absolutely right on that. And I'll be honest, my mind for some reason always forgets about the treaties, and I apologize for that. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
like I
pointing that
said,
out.
and my first, I mean, of course, I'm biased because, uh,
Yeah, I
right,
wouldn't
I'm
say
biased.
biased, but
You know, like,
I
if
definitely
someone
would say
else
you're
was
biased. You're
standing,
definitely your boots on the ground, in my opinion, right? Like
yeah,
I,
if
I
someone
love
was
the fact that
standing
you're
in
up
my,
talking about it.
right, if someone was standing in my shoes, they would have the same opinions that we can absolutely never get rid of treaties. But
Yeah.
on the flip side, every Canadian wants to save a buck. And
Well,
that
and
should be
that
a simple argument for every Canadian,
yeah,
right?
I think in general, just the monarchy itself. I don't think monarchies, because there are more. I think there's what, six or seven monarchies still kind of scattered around the world. So, like, I just don't think that royalty at this point needs to be a damn thing,
Yeah, I'm
right?
okay if
Like,
it saves me a buck. Right? Like,
yeah,
I understand your point of view, but
yeah.
is it that
Um,
big of an issue? Like, I think Canada has way bigger, more important issues
oh,
than
absolutely.
that, right? Like, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be a talking point at all,
I
you
think
know?
we need, well, and I think starting the conversation, realizing, yes, the amount of work that would have to be done and the amount of money that would have to be spent, I think it's a real conversation. Do I think it's likely or a good idea to do it anytime soon? No. But I think future wise, like, if we happen to get to a point where we're financially able to do it and we can actually have politicians that will sit down and hammer out things like, even new treaties, given we know the issues that are within the treaties that are currently withheld, right?
Hmm.
Um, so,
Rewriting them and leaving the
yeah,
Commonwealth
and
out of it,
getting,
right?
yeah, and hopefully within that process, fixing the issues with the treaties and fixing where really the government hasn't lived up to the promises made
Mm-hmm.
within the treaties, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and they do use different loopholes in terms of how wording is done about um, when it comes to being a part of the quote unquote Commonwealth of the UK, and certain things supersede what the last article said. So because the Crown thinks this, then the last section is just null and void anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'll use kind of to tie it for comparison how the government at this point of Canada really in a lot of scenarios and in a lot of cases within treaties they're the ones that set the guidelines for who gets um, status, right? Because they've said out you have to provide this to be able to prove to us, right? So that sort of thing, that's where to me it's like if we're gonna do the treaties and kind of get away from the Commonwealth, that'd be something where no, we need to start giving that sort of authority and that sort of decision to the Indigenous peoples, not the government itself.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
Second generation cutoff is its whole other issue, right? Like,
Yeah,
do
but
we,
for
right?
comparison in
Like,
terms of yeah,
yeah.
uh,
No, no, no. Exactly. Because, like, if you think about it, like in my family, my children are the second generation cutoff. So
mhm,
unless my children have children with someone who has status, my grandchildren are non-status. That's it. They're just
yeah,
not native enough. It doesn't matter that their parents grew up on a reserve. It doesn't matter. Like, none of this matters, right? They've reconnected to their culture, and it kind of, as far as treaties go, it ends, right? It's
yeah.
designed to end. It's
No,
supposed to
and
end.
that's yeah.
It's
It's this systemic canceling of culture. Essentially, it's literal
it's
cancel culture.
erasure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it was always meant to end. And that's why
yeah.
every time someone gets back into a court and says, hey, wait, why doesn't my children have status? And they win that court case,
Yeah.
that's a win for our communities. Because, there's a lot of things that end once status ends. So why
No,
should we not be
absolutely.
able to determine it, right?
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. I agree with you 1,000% on that. Definitely no argument. So just kind of, we're going to move forward, but by all means, stay up, Jax, and continue to contribute. I love it. Um, so Frank Baylis is a former Montreal Liberal MP and businessman. Baylis ran in 2015 under the Liberal banner, but chose not to run again in 2019. He sold his company. It was a medical company to Boston Scientific Corporations in 2022 for $1.75 billion. So, guys, that right there, and that's going to tie into, at the end of talking about all the different candidates here. Um, I mean, he's essentially just another rich guy, rich businessman that got into politics and has stayed there. The money was made through capitalism, which I don't have an issue with, but where the issue is the guy's a billionaire at this point, and probably worth a hell of a lot more than 1.75 what he got for his company. So is he in touch with what us everyday Canadians face? Is he in touch with the struggles of somebody that lives in downtown Toronto trying to survive on rent prices there? Or have any idea as to how that feels? Absolutely not. And furthermore, of course, with that stuff, um, people that are thinking at this point um, about running, first name, Christy Clark. Guys, Christy Clark is running for the leadership of the Liberal Party. I don't understand why Christy Clark is not a conservative. She was a Liberal premier of BC and essentially was around when Liberal Party lost their footing in BC, couldn't come back from it, and folded into the BC Conservatives. That's the makeup of the BC Conservatives now. And her views have always been more right of center, fiscally, and on policies, right? She's another one that's against the carbon carbon pricing, which, guys, carbon pricing isn't just a matter of what we get charged for carbon tax on gas or fuel or all the different things. It also has to do with international trade, and we need to keep that in mind because if we don't have that carbon pricing in there, we lo- we would lose a lot in terms of trade, and it would just go south. To trade with the majority of the EU, it's baked right into our trade agreements at this point. The most recent that was signed was Ukraine. Okay, so, and if you guys remember, the conservatives were going ape shit about that. That Justin Trudeau added the carbon pricing into the trade with Ukraine. No, like Ukraine already had carbon pricing before we did, and that was a whole part of them doing trade with us. Was, hey guys, like you need to do the same thing, and we see that across the EU. So whether you like it or not, it's got to be there for trade, bare minimum at this point. And being on the global market, it's got to be there. Of course, guys, one of the biggest names that's been talked about is Chrystia Freeland. We all know who Chrystia Freeland is. She's been finance minister, Liberal MP since 2013. Um, Justin's right hand person throughout the Liberal government. She's been there for quite a while. We know what she's about. Mark Carney. Mark Carney's another one that I just it's it the two candidates that are probably going to do the best in my prediction right now as it stands is going to be Chrystia Freeland or it's going to be Mark Carney. Okay, so Mark Carney is a former governor of the Bank of Canada. Bank of England is widely expected to announce a decision on leadership bid next week. Liberal organizers have sought to bring the star technocrat from the world of the global finance into the party fold for the past decade. This past summer, he took on a role advising the party on economics. Guys, there's so much about Mark Carney. But again, another privileged rich guy that really doesn't know art. You want to see it be Mark Carney? I'd be interested to know why, buddy. Um, Honestly, like I'm not trying to be a smartass. I honestly am intrigued on that one. Um, yeah, so that's what we see here. If I miss somebody, there's a bunch of different names here, guys. Like it's a list. But those ones were the biggest ones I wanted to point out. Melanie Jolie, Foreign Affairs Minister, dropped out of the race on January 10th. So she was in, and now she's not. Dominic LeBlanc was in, he dropped out. Um, for international respect, okay, okay, I can see that. I get where you're coming from on that one. He does. You're right. International respect for him is pretty high. So that is definitely a plus. Honestly, I think Mark would be better than Chrystia Freeland in terms of negotiations with Trump and the United States when it comes to trade right now. I'll be honest, just because he's been involved in finance and all that stuff before, so he's got the background to do that sort of stuff. I think is the biggest thing. So those are the candidates, guys. Um, of course, we'll hear a lot more moving forward. We have until the end of March, I believe, March 24th is when the leadership race is going to be up and, government is supposed to sit again, which leads me to my next point on election. So, as of right now, the prediction for an election, a lot of a lot of places are reporting that you're probably going to see the election um, probably between April and June is when the election will actually be called. Excuse me. It's not set in stone. It doesn't have to happen technically, but if you look back through history in the Canadian government, most times when this sort of thing has happened, there's been an election called. It's just kind of, I think, like unspoken kind of rule that they've followed, decorum really on it. So we won't know until we get there. That's the biggest thing, guys. We have to get through this leadership race, see who gets leadership, see the makeup of the Liberal Party moving forward once that happens, and how it all goes. So stay tuned on that one as we get more information on that stuff. Um, what are we seeing from the Conservatives? Conservatives, of course, um, they're pushing their messaging. They've really been amping up, guys. When I'm watching uh, different things. I mean, I sift through so much news, so much information, guys. And the conservative has really amped up. It was already a lot, but they've really amped up their messaging on media, pushing back against the liberals, and really just trying to bolster the way it sits. Given all the information we have, it sounds like we're going to have a conservative government. It's just a matter of if it's a majority or a minority government at this point, guys. So they're really pushing and amping up their messaging, trying to get more support, drum that up, to do their best to try and get a majority. Of course, Pierre Poilievre, his comments on the whole thing, he automatically, the first comment that I saw, actual press release comment that he made in front of the camera, he shifted immediately to the Liberal Party as a whole. And he did that strategically because whoever gets the leadership of the Liberal Party now, it's just setting up to do the same nonsense that he's already been spouting about Trudeau more so. They're just going to replace the name. So instead of seeing flags that say fuck Trudeau, you're going to see name flags with fuck insert leader of the Liberal Party. And they are pushing, oh, all these people are, you know, for the carbon tax and da da da. Well, no, probably about half the candidates at this point, from my understanding, are actually against carbon pricing. Um, but the whole party as a whole still is right of center. Their policy, their legislation, how they look at things is still right of center. It's a capitalist mindset. So we're still going to see favoritism towards corporations and companies, that sort of stuff. More geared towards the more wealthy. Which, sorry, I need a quick drink, guys. But speaking of the more wealthy, I do want to put context into this leadership race, because if I'm not mistaken, it's either 300,000 or $350,000 just to put your name in the ring for the leadership race. So I bring that up, guys. You have to be rich. You have to be wealthy to run for the leadership of the Liberal Party. Either that or have a really good grassroots backing to be able to even run for leadership, right? So take that into context. Better than the Conservatives. I'm not going to sit here and say, don't vote Liberal. I personally, I have to wait for the platforms and I have to see who's running in my riding, which is how we should look at things. But again, when you're talking about a leadership race, and leaders that would be more in touch with Canadians, there's not very many when you need 300,000 just to enter the race. They're not. We're talking about millionaires, billionaires have that kind of money to throw to running for the leadership, right? So, um, but they did, however, given the foreign interference we've seen in the past, which I'm really looking forward to. We're supposed to see reports on come the end of the month, for the foreign interference. So, but seeing what has happened with foreign interference, they have kind of bolstered their voting process within the party itself. So, um, before it was you had to have a Canadian address. Now they're actually kind of bringing that in a bit and making it more strict, so you actually have to show proof of being a Canadian citizen. Um, and I believe it's 14 is actually the voting minimum age too. I apologize if I'm wrong. It's like 16 or 14. Um, but they are being more strict in that sense, and I think it's partially to make sure that there can't be any kind of holes in criticism in terms of how they're doing it, and it just shows that it's you know more secure than what we saw with the Conservatives with their leadership race when Polyev got it, of course. Um, so yeah, that's really all I got in terms of the leadership race for the Liberals. Pretty much every other party leader has come out and said like, "Hey, we're we're ready for this. We're happy to see that he's moved aside for the best interests of Canada and Canadians." Um, I don't know if I would actually agree with that sentiment. Do I believe his time as leader of the Liberal Party was up? Absolutely, and I've been pretty open about that for a while. Um, I just honestly didn't think it was going to happen now. I thought, probably hang on till the next election in October, and that would be it. But yeah, we are where we are for that. So, still on the politics, guys. Let's talk about Trump and the nonsense. I'm not going to spend much time on it, but it is in the news and it is important. Um, yeah, so guys, Trump keeps going on with his rhetoric about Canada. He's also said about buying Greenland, the Panama Canal. Jax was up earlier, and I really appreciate Jax and Zen as well, I believe, pointed out, if I'm remembering correctly, but pointed out that it's bolstering. It's trying to get a narrative out there. Um, it's there's little truths in stuff that Trump says, right? It's We're not going to become a 51st state. We're not going to have any of that nonsense, but it's stuff related to trade. It's stuff related to trade routes, right? We have our northern trade that's going to be opening up, and it's a big talk on the global scale because it's going to diverge or move trade routes, and a lot of people are going to be using our northern channel there for trade. So he's trying to bolster things with that. He's talked about the Panama Canal again, related to trade. Um, Guys, Russia has really been pushing in terms of our northern channel for that. Not that they're pushing into it, but they've been trying to get the rights to um, the ocean or the water closer to our kind of water border, and it's because they want to have some sort of control. Uh, in that trade route, and that's what you're seeing from the United States, from Trump. So as absurd as some of his comments are, there are different factors that they want to bring in and are actual factual. It's just Trump, and he just says shit different. Uh, for lack of better words, guys, I'm sorry. That's not very professional, but that's the guys, Justin Trudeau actually did an interview on MSNBC. Um, it was posted on YouTube about 4 hours ago, but I did sit down and happen to watch a little bit of it before coming on. Trudeau sat down and said that the man is, like a master negotiator. I can't remember the exact wording, so I apologize if I don't have the exact wording correcting. But, like they talk about him like he's this great businessman. And our politicians, regardless of who it is, whether it's Trudeau, whether it's Freeland, whether it's the Conservatives, doesn't matter. They need to start looking at Trump for what he is. Okay? He's a failed businessman. He came out with a book about the art of the deal. He sucks at making deals. Okay? He's never been good at it. He's bankrupt how many companies? He's not good with money. Okay? All this shit, this conversation is Trump as a politician or Trump as a businessman. I'm sorry, but our politicians need to start looking at him as the failed businessman he is and treat him as such. I can't even, like, all this different shit, and the guy's still hucking stuff made in China with his name on it. America first. We'll take care of things. We'll make China pay tariffs, and we'll make Canada pay tariffs. Which I don't understand because he's making his own damn company pay more money for his own damn product, right? And it's not going to help anyone. It's not going to help Canada. It's going to hurt Canada. It's going to hurt the United States. Their consumers are actually going to pay more. And they say it's a long game. They say it's, like, yeah. Art, I saw your comment. Enjoy the game, buddy. Enjoy your time with the family. Appreciate you coming by. Love seeing you. Yeah, so that's all I have to say on Trump at this point. He's a wild card, guys. What he actually does, we have to wait and see until he's actually in office again. He's got his role as president, and go from there, right? Because he's done it before where he talks out his ass and doesn't actually do what he said in the past with different things. So, I mean, healthcare. Look at the healthcare down there. He was so determined that he had something better than what was already there. He fought in court. They didn't actually get rid of it, but he said they had something better. And then when they decided to debate this time for the presidency, wow, there's plans in the works for a framework, and so he never actually had anything. He doesn't have plans. However, yes, he's got different people around him this time that are more volatile. So we'll see, or that's what he wants anyway, whether they get in or not. Um, well, yeah, Mexico was going to pay for the wall. You're right, Jax. And Steve Bannon went to prison for that because they scanned people out of their money for the wall. Steve Bannon went to prison for it. Like, come on, Americans, open your eyes. They stole your money and ran away with it. But it is what it is. Getting back into Canada, though, guys. What else do we got on a provincial level? Oh, okay. So here in Ontario, Doug Ford is, and I've seen the commercials and I've done a bit of looking into it. Not as much as I would like to at this point, but so Doug Ford has come out with this rebate for, making your homes more energy efficient. You can get money for doors, for windows, for heat pumps, all that sort of stuff. I apologize, guys. So it's the exact same thing that the Liberals had in place in Ontario before he took over, and they scrapped it, and now he's bringing it back just with a different damn name. It's the exact same thing as what the Liberals had, right? So, and I'll be honest, when I first saw it, I thought, hey, is Doug actually doing something that I would fully agree with here? He is. So credit where credit's due, okay? It is happening, but it's not actually his damn policy. It's not his stuff. He's just copying what was there. They scrapped, and to make himself look better, hey, let's just bring it back, and hopefully people forgot the Liberals had the same damn thing, right? Um, yeah. What did I see? Alberta. Um, you guys are having more issues with the healthcare over in Alberta. Um, Yeah, I can't remember. Oh, and Danielle Smith. What's this over in Alberta? Guys, if you know more on this, I know I've kind of dropped the ball on this one, which I apologize. But I did want to mention it, how there's a lot less accountability for the Alberta government at this point, through what they've been doing and trying to push through different legislation and policies so that there is less oversight of the Alberta government. Um, the That's nuts. Okay, I'm sorry I don't have all the details about it. It's been a long week, long holiday season. Um, yeah, there is no accountability. There you go. Again, I apologize. I don't have more of the ins and outs on that topic, but it's definitely been going on. Um, yeah, guys. I mean, I'm going to bring up Gaza, and that probably isn't going to help my stream in terms of the algorithm and shit, but whatever. I'm going to bring up Gaza. Guys, Gaza is still being bombed. Gaza is still being attacked. Palestinians are being slaughtered by Israel. Let me say it again. Palestinians are being slaughtered by Israel. I know it's not going to help my algorithm and it's probably going to hurt my shit, but whatever. Guys, it's still happening. It's not stopping. They're not going to stop. Benjamin Netanyahu has made it very clear that until Hamas no longer exists, which the more you bomb, the more you're bolstering Hamas. Like, this is a catch 22, guys. Terrorists get radicalized. That's why they become terrorists, right? You think bombing civilians over and over and over again and killing tens of thousands of civilians that we know of at this point is going to get rid of Hamas, is going to get rid of the sentiment behind why Hamas exists and why they have the point of view that they do. No, it's going to take people and it's going to draw people to go that way. And at the same time, can we talk about the West Bank? What the fuck are you doing in the West Bank, Israel? You've been there this entire time. Nobody's fucking talking about it. But you've been in the West Bank. The West Bank has nothing to do with fucking Hamas. Okay, you're selling off the property there and everything from under people's feet. You've come to Canada and the United States, and you've gone to places of worship to sell real estate that is not yours, property that is not yours. Absolutely colonizing. Okay, and why do we see the sentiment that we do in the West, whether it's Canada, whether it's United States? In all honesty, and I'm going to be honest about this, a lot of the reason why the West supports Israel is based on religion, is based on Christianity. Weird, huh? But Israel's mostly Jewish. The reason why the West is so gung ho on making sure that we bend the knee to Israel, the Israeli government, is because what they're doing, the evangelical Christians here in the West, are essentially, hey, they're there, they're safeguarding for us for when the rapture happens. We know our holy place is safe and we'll be good to go there, and then we can ascend. Okay, and I'm not criticizing anyone's faith. Don't take it that way. Okay, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having a belief system, but this is how it actually plays out. This is why there's so much sentiment towards backing Israel. That, along with, of course, and there's racism in there. Okay, there absolutely is. What's the difference? Why are they going after Palestinians? Why don't they like Palestinians? Do you guys know Israel actually used to belong to the Palestinians? And they gave it to the Israelis. They gave it to the Jewish community to give them somewhere they could call home after World War II. Okay? They were given that land. Like, come on. It's insane to me how things got so topsy-turvy over there. And the rest of the world at this point is letting it happen. I'm not saying the people of the world, okay? I'm saying governments, people in power, because those of us here today and all around the world, I see protests. I see people speaking out against it. But you know what's happening? Everyone's being suppressed. Remember when we were being suppressed, or the people were being suppressed at college campuses in Canada and the United States for speaking out against the fact that a lot of those campuses, a lot of those colleges and universities had ties to Israel, had funding either from or were giving funding to Israel. Okay? Follow the money, guys. Exactly, Pixie. Thank you. That's how this all works, right? Who's got the money? Who's holding the power? Who's pushing things around. Follow the money trail. APAC. I've talked about it before. One of the biggest super PACs down in the United States that gives money to politicians and the parties is an Israeli PAC, right? And they are one of the top contributors to politicians. We have the same thing. It's called something else in Canada. I apologize, can't remember, but we have the same thing. And they are one of the biggest funders of politicians and parties in the West, right? So when you have that much money, and I'm meaning hundreds of millions of dollars worth of donations to politicians and to parties. So when you have that much money exchanging hands, what do you think is going to happen? We're seeing it. Prime example. Look at Donald Trump and Elon Musk right now, right? Elon Musk essentially is running that damn administration right now. Why? Because he bought Trump. That's why Trump wants him a part of his administration. That's why Elon Musk has been sitting down in fucking Mar-a-Lago with Trump, sipping Mai Tais or whatever the fuck, eating McDonald's, right? Because he bought that spot, essentially, by giving Trump all the donations that he did for his campaign. It's blatant. It's right there in front of us. We can see it, right? That's where the difference is. In Canada, it's a little harder to see if you're not paying attention, but yeah. So that'll be another thing too, to see where donations come from during our elections, and that's something we need to pay attention to, right? Where are the biggest donations coming from, and what are the interests behind those donations? Whether it be a corporate donation or whether it be just a really big personal donation from an individual, where is that individual tied to? Right? Are they lobbyists? Are they connected to lobbyists? Are they connected to corporations somehow? Right? That's the stuff we need to pay attention to. Until we can actually get the money out of politics, the corporate money out of politics, guys, there's always going to be the 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 favorability towards corporations and corporate greed. Um, Speaking of corporations, I scrolled, guys. I completely forgot till now. I was paying attention to a lot of stuff down in the States, and right now, in 2025, not at this very moment, but pay attention. If you're in the market for a new vehicle in 2025, pay attention to the market. And I'm going to predict that new vehicle prices are going to go down. As to how much, I don't know. It's not going to be a full on crash, but they are going to go down. Ford, right now, is prime example. Down in the United States, Ford has over 30% of their normal stock sitting in lots, sitting in warehouses, waiting to be put on the lots. And they've got no way to get rid of that stock. Um, so they're hurting, and I use Ford as an example, but all the companies are having the same issue, right? They're down in the States anyway, and I've seen some here. They're really pushing the sales to try and get that stock out the door because they just have too much sitting. Um, so I do see a bit of a crash in the automotive industry, but I'm not saying it's going to be a full on crash. It's going to come down a bit, and it'll be good for consumers because we will see more deals when it comes to that stuff. But I will predict either Canada or the United States or both. You're probably going to see some bailouts towards the automotive sector moving forward. Probably the end of 2025, going into 2026. PG, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing? Can you hear me?
Oh, you're a little low, but I can make you out.
It's gonna connect soon, but oh,
Just quick while you get that going, Pixie's right as well in the comments. Tariffs absolutely are going to affect trade in terms of our automotive sector, so that's going to play a role absolutely when it
Okay,
comes
here it is.
to vehicle pricing. There you go.
I just connected. I'm in an Uber.
Yep.
Um, please tell me you checked on GMCs and the truck prices are going to go down.
I haven't checked. It's the overall automotive industry right now. They've been hanging on to a bunch of or not hanging on to. They just can't get stock out of the lots as quick as they normally would. Um, so with all that down in the States, we're going to see, and we are seeing some of it up here already. Um,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, that's fair. I'm not getting a new truck anyway. I already know that.
but it is going to be so, and I just pointed all out because it's going to be a consumer market because of that. A little bit better, like we'll fare a bit better when it comes to prices. And I want to make clear to people as well, from what I've seen, you're better to go new at this point than used because a lot of the times the interest rate on a used vehicle is significantly higher at this point than what it would be on a new vehicle,
Yep. Yeah.
right?
Sometimes you buy a new vehicle and you pay like 0% for, I don't know if it's a truck, 80 months or 84 months or whatever it is.
Yep.
But I know it's a long time, but trucks last. But I mean, as long as you keep them that long, they last and take care of them.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, 0% saves you a significant amount
Hmm.
on that vehicle purchase. And if you
Hmm.
buy used, you're paying what, 9, 10%, 12? I don't know
Uh,
what it is now.
yeah, it varies, of course, but I think on average we're probably setting about 8 to 10% at this point.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
On average.
Yeah, I haven't had a payment in a little while, so
Hmm.
I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah,
kind of good to
and
hear that that's going to happen. I think.
yeah, and it's something we're going to see too, guys. When you're looking at vehicles, always look at what they're giving you, right? Because there's sometimes they'll give you, oh, we'll give you 10,000 back or 20,000 back or, all those different kind of gimmicks to get you in. If they're able to spare that 10 to 20,000 on that vehicle, like, the price is way too high. And they're honestly, the automotive sector has been gouging us too, along
Yep.
with other industries, right? We saw it during the pandemic when they were withholding chips um, for
Yep.
different parts and stuff within the automotive sector and creating more of a shortage to try and boost the prices. And they did go up. They went up on average 5 to 10% back then when they were doing that shit.
Well, you know what, Moose?
Well,
They
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 didn't necessarily withhold the chip. There was a chip shortage. I
No,
mean,
there
this
was, but
even
they
had to
were.
do with the repair side of the industry. For example, Freightliner. I'm a truck mechanic, so Freightliner, the DEF quality. Reductant quality modules, we couldn't get them fast enough to the point where Freightliner was just programming the ECMs to bypass it because they had a part shortage due to a chip
No,
shortage.
and there was the shortage, but it was exacerbated by the automotive industry because they knew by withholding some of that and just keeping stock back a bit, they jacked up the prices during the pandemic.
Yeah, and we didn't, and
Sorry,
we
no,
would say,
I'm gonna
and we would
totally
blame it
disagree
all on
with
the
the notion
shortage,
that
right?
was on purpose. That was
And
not
we
on
would blame it
No,
purpose.
all
no,
on
no,
the
no. I'm
shortage.
not saying the whole thing was on purpose. The shortage was not on purpose. But the automotive industry and the automotive sector, the companies, exacerbated that for their own capitalist greed.
Okay, so if you're saying that yes, I'll agree with you on this one because
Yeah.
we were seeing new car new car sales were there was a market adjustment rate they called it put on the price of the vehicle because there
Mm-hmm.
was a shortage of vehicles. I do remember when driving past my local GM that they had maybe 8 new vehicles on the lot and the lots were empty.
Mm-hmm. No,
So,
exactly. Go ahead, PG.
so let's go a little bit further back on that
Mm-hmm.
because um, because when we talk about GM, for example, with the 2008 crash, they were bailed out, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then what GM ended up telling their employees is, hey, can you guys sit tight and not ask for raises while we recovered, right? And then
Yep.
when they recovered, they never gave the raises. They had to go back and fight and strike for it. And in that time, when everybody is saying, hey, we can't pay people more because if we do, they're going to raise the prices of everything. Vehicle sales, the price of vehicles went up. Somebody can fact check me, but I think they went up like 40-ish%. They went up like fucking crazy in that whole time, right? Like
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, trucks were $25,000. Now the last truck I looked at was 135, right? Like
Yeah.
I get it. It was a Denali. I get it. Don't come at me. But at the end of the day, like a truck went from 25 to 40 to 60, now 135, right?
Yeah.
And workers still had to fight for their wages.
Well,
And
and
so
PG, I worked at a GM dealership for a period of time. I'm not going to necessarily defend the car industry because, yeah, vehicles are expensive, but the technology that's in some of these cars these days, like you can buy a 2024 GMC Sierra Denali with Super Cruise, and the friggin' thing drives itself. You know, the amount of computers that are in these things. So a $25,000 truck, it was a thing. You could buy a base model GM or Chevy Silverado GMC Sierra, base model, and it had a radio, it had a steering wheel, and it my father-in-law in 2023 bought a base model Chevy Silverado WT for all intents and purposes, a work truck. It is as base model as you can get with 0 options and an 8-foot box. He paid $50,000 for the truck.
So
I've got a 2018 GMC Sierra SLT, and that truck new when it was on the lot was a $63,000 truck. If you buy that truck today, it's about $98,000.
Yeah. So there you go. So that's and I mean you can adjust for inflation, quote unquote, on that stuff, but that doesn't make up the difference there. And I do want to ask Antisocial because I do know someone that bought a full-on base model truck, roll down windows, like crank windows, like literally crank windows, and still had a CD player and a radio. Like it was bare bones. Yep. The thing is the companies or the dealerships normally will not keep the base models on property because they don't want to sell those ones as much as they want to sell the higher priced ones, of course. Right. So,
but I can tell you from firsthand experience, if you look at the used vehicle market, the used vehicle market doesn't have $10,000 in profit on selling the used vehicles. $3,000 to $5,000.
Where they get the money is the interest on the used vehicles at this point.
That's correct. They get a kickback. Yeah. So when I bought my truck, it was used, and the lowest interest rate that I could get, not that I could get, that was offered because I qualified for the lowest possible interest rate, was 5.9%. And I traded in my 2019 GMC Canyon Denali that I bought brand new. I got more money out of it than what was owed on it because it was COVID and they needed trucks, right? And then I traded in for the truck that I have now. But even in the new vehicle market, you're $6,000 to $8,000 profit on a new vehicle. But don't forget, there's also warranty in there, and now warranty doesn't pay for shit. If you as a mechanic. If you go and do like warranty work, it pays 30 to 50% of what customer pay labor rates would be, and or labor times, not labor rates, but labor times would be. So there's obviously like a buffer in there. And I mean, I don't fault the dealership for wanting to make money, but are there margins like $15,000 on a vehicle? No, they're like $6,000 to $8,000 on a new vehicle, which in a $100,000 vehicle, if you're making $8,000 off it, that's 8%. You're not making a shitload of money.
But okay, so you worked at a dealership though. So give me an example. I mentioned earlier where down the States, some of the stuff that I saw where companies are able to say, hey, we'll give you X amount off, or we'll give you X amount kind of kickback towards you, let's say 10 grand or whatever it is, right? That sort of stuff, that to me right there shows though that if they're willing to give you those sort of incentives, if they're willing to do that sort of stuff to get you to buy it, they're still making profit if they're giving you that 10 grand back. Right, they're still making enough profit.
Yeah, but it's from GM, for example. Those incentives are top down. All right, this isn't like a dealership that's going. Some dealerships give additional incentives, but
and that's
it's a top down incentive.
Yeah, so I'm saying the automotive industry as a whole, not just dealerships, right? And that's where the system itself within the automotive industry is set up to have that bigger margin of profit. So both your dealership and your overall company gets the most profit for
Well,
their
don't
profit.
forget too that the dealership might make the profit off it, but the profit is there's a little bit of trickle down economics in there because out of that profit they have to pay the salesperson their commission. There are certain people within the dealership that are only paid hourly that don't necessarily derive a or not a direct correlation of profits.
No, and I
So if
realize
you
that
take
absolutely.
Right. So while the dealership might profit, let's say that for round numbers, the dealership profits $8,000. The end profit that it's the dealer principal might actually make is closer to like 500 to $1,000 net profit after they pay the expenses, after they pay the workers, the real estate fees that they have, whether they own the
Yeah.
dealership or lease the land or
Well,
whatever. So
and
like
this is
you still have to make a profit.
yeah, no, and I understand that, and like Jack's pointed out in the
I'm
comments
just gonna
there
let you
too.
know I'm
Again,
gonna
it's
drop soon.
manufacturer. Yeah, yeah. Thanks, PG, for coming up, eh?
Yeah, no problem. I'm just gonna drop suddenly at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries,
um,
PG. Good to see you
but
too,
but
buddy.
but that's where like the manufacturers, like Jack's pointed out, it's the overall system because the manufacturers are still making enough profit on top of the dealers, right? And that's where I said earlier, where you do see scenarios where if they drop down the price $20,000, $30,000, they're still making profit, or else they wouldn't drop that much off the truck in the first place just to try and
Well,
get it off
and
the lot to get the newer model in, right?
but to be fair, the manufacturers they make profit on volume. They don't
No,
make
I
profit
realize.
on the
Yeah,
individual
I realize
sale,
that.
right? So
Yeah,
if the manufacturer say makes $2,500, and look at the size of some of these manufacturers and some of their overhead costs,
and
if they
that's
make
and
twenty five
that's
hundred bucks on a vehicle and they sell 100,000 vehicles, great, they've made what's that, $25 million. So yeah, of course, it's the profits are solely derived from volume,
but
and can they get the incentives? Yeah.
yeah, well, and this is where my one of my first points on this topic was the fact that and I used Ford as an example. They're sitting at down just their U.S. stock from what I saw in terms of numbers. They're sitting at 30% over their normal capacity in terms of sitting in lots somewhere, just waiting to get out there, and that's 2 3 year old models where normally that stuff's already out the door and gone, and they're trying to get the next model already. Well, 2025 would have started to be on the
Yeah, and
lots,
and of
what, three
course
four
they're
months
looking
ago.
to get rid of old stock, so they're going to
Yeah,
mark it down to get rid of it.
but they've got a
You know,
massive amount more of stock than what they have in previous years, right? So that's where I'm
well,
getting at in terms of we'll see prices drop and everything too.
and to be fair, the quality of vehicles that we're making these days is far better than what they did 20 years ago.
Yeah,
If you look at
yeah.
okay, let's take GM for example. All right, and just I'm a GM fan. I also my wife has an Infiniti. I also have a Subaru. I'm a big Subaru fan as well. But my truck, I park my truck for the winter. I don't tow anything other than our campers, so there's no need for me to be driving my truck throughout the
You're
winter. So I've got a cheap Subaru Outback that gets me from point A to point B back and forth to work. So let's look at
overall
GM for example.
durability. Yeah, overall durability, you're absolutely correct. I would push back a little bit just because, in terms of the amount of recalls we see sector wide, I'm not going to point out any specific dealer
Well, okay, so
or company, but
would be a big one. Takata,
yeah,
they're the airbag manufacturer that there's massive recalls out for
mhm,
Takata. Yes.
right. So this is a sort of, but Ford, GM, like they've all had really going back the last 4 5 6 years, they've really they've had more recall issues industry
Okay.
wide than we've seen in the past. So that's why I say
Right.
I push back on they're built better than they ever have been, because if they were, we wouldn't see the amount of recalls that we see, coming
Okay.
out of the
So
gate, so to speak.
sure. I'm not
right?
going to
It's the
disagree
same
with
thing
you
with
on that,
Boeing.
but here's the thing. Some of the recalls are so minor in nature that it's just getting ahead of the curve. All right. So GM, for example, on 2021 and newer pickup trucks, whether it's Chevy Silverado or GMC Sierra, they had an electric button to open the tailgate.
Oh,
And
yeah, I remember. Yeah,
yeah, so I did a ton of these recalls. All right.
yeah,
So the recall was that the tailgate may open unexpectedly. So until the new switches were brought out, what the techs were told to do was basically the switch, cut the wires, and protect the wires, so your button on your tailgate didn't work. Well, it's not to say that GM made that button. It's not to say that was a manufactured part by GM. All of these car manufacturers, and I used to work for one of the not subsidiaries, but when I was younger, one of these manufacturers that I made like Corvette steering knuckles. All of these manufacturers contract out the majority of their parts. Right now, GM might assemble the engines, but the pistons are not forged by GM.
No.
The connecting rods, right? So
Yeah.
it's
I
basically
worked.
a conglomerate of
Yeah.
manufacturers that come together. Now, GM, do they weld and stamp their own bodies? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But are the wire harnesses made by GM? Maybe, maybe not, right?
No, I've worked for a couple different automotive companies where, yeah, we were, the name of the company I worked for was completely different than the company, the cars we were making,
Exactly,
right? So,
exactly.
yeah.
And for example, and here's another great one that I used to be involved in this industry, fire apparatus. There is one major manufacturer that makes all of the custom cabs for fire apparatus manufacturers. Pierce, Spartan, E1. KME, there's one manufacturer that actually puts together the cabs to the specs of KME, Spartan, Pierce, and then they're shipped to those manufacturers to be, and I've seen it firsthand. I've done the Spartan fire truck tour and stuff like that. There's one major manufacturer that actually puts together these cabs, and then they're shipped off to KME, to E1, et cetera, right? Yep. So now let's step back. Let's look at GM where they were in their mid 2000s before the crash of GM, we'll say, right? The problem was that they thought that, hey, if we can make Pontiac and Chevrolet, we can have the same car but under two different names, we can make more money. The advent of Saturn, Pontiac, Oldsmobile. You could buy a Pontiac, a Pontiac Pursuit, for example, was the same as the Toyota.
No, the Pontiac Pursuit.
Not the Pursuit, sorry.
Was the GM.
It was a Chevy Cobalt, is what it was. Yeah, Pontiac Pursuit was the same as the Chevy Cobalt. The Toyota Matrix was also coupled up with GM, right? So then they crashed, and then they're like, "Hey, bail us out," and they got rid of 50% of their product lines. So now what's left? We have GM, Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac.
Yep.
Is there anything left? I think GM, Chevy, Buick, Cadillac. Anybody in the comments help me out here?
Chrysler?
It's Stellantis, different company.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I think that's it. I think it's GM, Buick, Chevrolet, Cadillac. That's it. I think those are the only four brands under. The Pontiac G5 was the same as the Cobalt. I think the Pursuit was the same as the Matrix.
Okay.
And it was the Pontiac Pursuit V5.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but yeah,
No, and
it's like the Cavalier and the Sunfire. So getting back to my point of vehicles lasting longer, those vehicles had planned obsolescence. You got 100,000 K out of these toaster cars, and then they were thrown out. You can't, if you see a Chevy Cavalier or Pontiac Sunfire on the roads these days, you're gifted. Look at the Chevy Aveo. I had a Chevy Aveo. They're discontinued. You can't even get parts for them anymore. Planned obsolescence.
Yeah, and that's another way that the industry gets you, right? Because eventually they don't have to legally make parts for those vehicles anymore. I need something like 10 years or something.
Yeah, but you can still buy parts for a 2010 Honda Civic.
Oh yeah, they're off brand or whatever you want to say. Yeah. right?
Aftermarket. Yep.
But the companies themselves don't have to carry the parts for more than like 10 years, I think it is. Um, so it's just another way they get you, because if you do have one that does manage to last, it does make it harder. Most have, off brand parts, but there are other ones like BMW that no, you got to go straight to BMW. Um,
Yeah, but you know what though, there are some cars that were made that I do miss. The one car that my ex-wife had, she bought it like a week before she met me, and this is back in 2004. Was the Chevy Beretta Z26, 2-door, 3.1 liter V6, just a nice interior, decent looking car, really nice rims on it. Like some of those older, I want to say it was a 96 Beretta, some of those mid 90 cars that Chevy made, like the Corsica, the Beretta was basically a 2-door Corsica. Like even the Dodge Caravan. You used to be able to buy a Dodge Caravan for sub $20,000. Like they were $19,995.
Yep.
And now,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you look at buying a Chrysler Pacifica, which is essentially the replacement, because they don't make the Dodge Caravan anymore, it's an $80,000 minivan.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Absolutely. I do got to push forward onto the next topic though, dude, because I do got to wrap up shortly.
No worries. No
Got
worries.
an early morning. But talking about companies, guys, let's talk about the CBC investigation that has now come to light, and hopefully we see some action from now, after everything to do with the bread price fixing. We have more in terms of big grocery companies like Loblaws, Walmart, Sobeys, um, essentially charging us more for meat than what we're actually buying. So they factored in, by the sounds of it, given the report, that they factored in the weight of the packaging itself into the price you're paying for meat. So, yes, there is pushback on it from some places saying that, oh, it's one-offs, or it's the establishment itself, it's not the companies themselves. Guys, a year beforehand, before this more current report has come out through the investigation that CBC did, they actually went and did this a year ago, and the same issues across Canada, right? And they were found, and Loblaws was talked to about this, and they said, oh, there was an issue with this, we apologize, we're going to correct it. It's a year later and they're still doing it. So based on the information and based on what we've seen throughout more recent history, again with the price fixing on bread, them apologizing, say they were going to fix the issue with the meat weight issue, and they haven't. Also, I did have somebody earlier today say that a lot of times with big, and I realize like a lot of these companies have third party companies that, take care of the meat, package it, send it to them, and they just throw it on the shelf. But it's still, they are the company responsible for making sure the standards are properly followed, which means not charging us for packaging and just charging us for the food itself, right? Yes, you can make the argument that, well, they got to make up the cost of the packaging or whatever, but no, I don't want to hear that. Okay, that's not what we pay for when we're supposed to be paying for meat. Okay, technically that's factored into the price already, so we shouldn't be. The fact is they're lying on the labels. They're telling us X amount of meat is in this package. It's not. That's the meat plus the package. Full on lying to us. And again, given the track record, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it's bigger than just one-offs every once in a while or in different places. It's a full-on, like, it's Loblaws, it's Walmart, it's Sobeys. It's across the board. It's another just, we're going to gouge the shit out of people, and there's nothing they can do, right?
Well, there is an easy fix to this problem, as pointed out in the comments. It might not be an easy fix for everybody, but here's a very small take on it. Now, what do they say? That a city has enough resources to feed its people for 3 days because we rely on just-in-time delivery, right? So Walmart gets their, and Sobeys and Loblaws, they get their shipments, say, 2 to 3 times a week to restock the shelves, right? So the majority of Canada is rural.
So
We have our
what?
big
Hold on,
urban
hold on.
centers.
What's the issue? Before you go on, what's the issue you're saying we're going to fix?
I'm getting to it. I'm
Okay.
getting to it. So the majority of Canada is rural. We have our big urban centers, but the vast majority of Canada, and I'm talking about populated Canada that lives within 100 kilometers of the border, is rural. We need to start looking back at how we used to do food.
Mhm.
Okay, we used to go to the butcher. We used to go to the local farm stand. We used to buy from our own communities, and we're so heavily reliant on your Loblaws, your Sobeys, your Independents, etc., for our food. So one way you could fix it is going to your local farmer or butcher, what
And
have you, and say, I'm going to buy
Yeah.
a half a cow. And I'm going to look at feeding my family. Now, I understand that logistically and financially, that's not a possibility for the majority
For the
of
vast
Canadian
majority of
families.
Canadians, yeah.
That's right. So we're so reliant on, and we trust, and I think that's the biggest thing that has been broken is trust. We trust that these grocers are being honest and forthcoming in the way that they're dealing with the consumer. When the story was broken that Loblaws was packaging or at least selling their meat at a higher price based on weight, that the weight wasn't there, I found that incredibly offensive, and as the majority of Canadians did. But my family is not necessarily in a position where we could buy a $2,400 cow once you factor in the cost of the meat and processing and then put it into a freezer, but I could split that with my neighbor. You know what I mean?
And that's, yeah. So my biggest thing when it comes to this is the fact was Loblaws was talked to about this a year ago by the people that are supposed to hold the companies accountable. But the problem is the checks and balances didn't work out, and they relied on the company to self-govern themselves and take care of the issue themselves. And that's where, to me, it's an oversight issue, massive oversight issue, because if you're charging everyone that's buying meat from 4 to 11% more than what you're supposed to be, like you're essentially making your billions of dollars of profits. And I realize it's not just from the meat, right? You have to couple it with what we're hearing about the meat, the price fixing on bread, like they've been doing, or did, I should say, right? What we call shrinkflation, because we all know we're paying more and we're getting less than what we used to in the packaging.
Of course.
Like packages themselves have even gotten smaller. So,
but that is
all
not
that
a
sort of
regulatory issue within the grocer, because the grocer is just buying the product from the
No,
manufacturer.
but it's
and
coupled
reselling
with
it, right?
it's a coupled issue with it, right? And I'll
Yeah,
go
right,
even
and-
further and say it is an issue with the grocery stores, because Loblaws is prime example. They own how many different brands of food, right?
Right, but
Loblaws
that's
owns
the
like
same
4
as-
or 5 different brands of food, right? One
Yes,
being
but that's the
donut.
same thing as saying Tim Hortons makes their donuts. They don't.
No,
like
but they're
for-
still
for-
responsible as being the company that owns these brands, right? So they're still
they
responsible
own
for the
they own
same
brands, but
Yeah.
they don't own. So if you look at,
but they're
if you
still
look at
responsible for it.
But if you look at the side of a packaged good, there's usually a part that says manufactured for. Walmart Canada, Loblaws,
Yeah, but my point being,
so
we're
like
seeing the
Nestle
shrinkflation,
makes yes, I agree. We have
right? All the coupled
shrinkflation
issues with our
is a thing.
groceries right now, shrinkflation, absolutely greedflation, and I won't get into it because I'm sure I'll go on a massive rant. But this whole right now, guys, if we were to get rid of the carbon tax, it would not change the price of fucking groceries. Period.
No,
Okay,
it wouldn't.
because the companies would not get rid of that cost.
It wouldn't.
So
But you know what? You know what? The other frustrating part that even my own family that I've noticed is shrinkflation might be a thing. No, it is a thing. 100%. It is a thing. But we also we waste like 20% of our food.
no,
You know,
and
my
you're
wife
right
and I
about that.
subscribe
Overall,
to
yeah.
yeah, my wife and I subscribe to a service in the Ottawa area called Odd Bunch, and Odd Bunch for us delivers on Saturday 15-pound box of fresh fruits and vegetables. And it's fantastic. It's like $36 a week, and we rarely have to go out and buy vegetables because it supplies us with a lot. But it also supplies us with fruits and vegetables that we don't often eat. Now, how do we? So we've got a thing of oranges, all right, and we're not going to eat an orange or a clementine every single day, and my kids won't either. So what do? Well, we look at ways of preserving that. And one thing that we do is we can. We do a ton of canning, and if people could learn that skill, you would be able to save a hell of a lot of money on food rather than throwing it out. Those oranges are starting to go bad. You can can oranges. We can meat. We make our own stews. We make our own pasta sauce. We'll go to Costco, and if we buy a big thing of salmon, we'll can 50% of it, and it's still good for 2 years. If you've ever had tuna out of a can, I mean, you're perfectly fine.
Yeah, and it's something too. Like I grew up, honestly, my mom every year would do peaches and pears, right? And we had a cellar room set up, a cold room in the basement that was literally just shelves loaded with peaches and pears in jars, and
Exactly. And I mean,
right?
like 40 years ago, 50 years ago, I say 50 years ago, it was back in the 70s, but even earlier than that, food security was a family problem because we had to make sure that, you know, especially if you grew your own food, like my grandparents had a garden, we had a garden, we grow a lot of our own vegetables. You know, food security was a thing, whereas you didn't waste food. And today we find it's so easy to just Uber Eats or Instacart or whatever the case may be. And then it's just like, oh, well, I'm going to go down to, you know, I'm going to go pick up supper tonight, which is going to be a quick trip on my way home to the grocery store to pick up a couple things for supper. You know, we have a lot of food insecurity in this country. Food banks are being taxed to the brim. And I think a lot of it, and I might piss people off by saying that, but I think a lot of it is because we don't necessarily have the skills or are taught the skills at a young age to be able to maximize our pantries, maximize our food that we buy or we grow, and be able to plan accordingly. So these oranges that are sitting on my counter right now, they're going to go bad if we don't do anything with them. Well, I'm not going to waste that food. We're going to can it.
And you're absolutely right. And that's where, like society as a whole, Western society more so than the rest of the world, is fixated on instant gratification in literally everything in our lives.
100%.
Okay,
100%.
so that's absolutely coupled with the issues, and that's where the way that the corporations or the big companies have capitalized from it, because they know they can do this shit because that's how we thrive right now.
Hey, Jax, I'm glad you came up. You were talking quite a bit in the comments, so I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So I was just on what you just said. Why don't I know how to can? My grandmother knew how to can. My great grandmother knew how to can. Why don't my mom even knew? Why don't I know? Society has changed. And I don't think our education system has changed with it. That maybe if we taught this at school, that we could actually help a lot of people who find themselves in poverty. Because let's be honest, that's where a lot of food waste goes, right? Not knowing how to do these things, and not, if you don't know, you don't know what the investment is, you don't know where you're wasting money, and it's difficult to get into something like that, right?
Exactly.
So why don't we teach our kids this?
Exactly. And I'll just quickly add before Zen, I'll give you the floor. You know, you talked about, say, 30, 40 years ago when this was a more prominent thing. But you need to look at context too, because cost of living back then was absolutely completely different compared to now. Like you could have a one income household and still go for vacation and still be able to go for road trips and go camping and, you know, all this other stuff, and you had benefits through your work. So you were covered medically when it came to, medications and stuff. And like the quality of living back then was better because the system was set up better under how things were, right? And even with that, the disposable income between then and now, I'll say I'm not going to say it's for all, as a general, but for someone to start getting into canning and jarring is more of an expense to get into. Once you get started, you're good, but
Hmm.
just that initial, right? And I
Just
think
getting
that's
there.
where part
Well,
of the issue lies in today's
it's
society
really
is a lot of
not
people
that
It's not
expensive
can't.
to
an
get into,
issue.
but the difference between 40 years ago and today is one word: community. We used to look out for our
Hmm.
neighbors. We used to help each other out,
And
and
and what
now we
broke that
barely know our
community?
friggin' neighbors. That's right.
What broke the
So,
community? It was capitalism.
well,
But we had time.
sure, but
Moms
you know
were
what?
could stay
You go to
home.
your local bazaars. The fire department would have a pancake breakfast. You go to the Legion, and
Mhm.
you knew the people in your neighborhood. You knew the
Absolutely.
people in your community. But nowadays, I mean, we're so nomadic that it doesn't necessarily matter what our community looks like because we're easily transplanted from one community to the next, and we live in a global economy, which is a capitalist society. So, you're just making sure that whenever you move to a community, that you've got your no frills, you've got your food basics, you've got your Costco's and stuff like that,
Yeah.
nearby because you depend on them so much. Whereas before, like, and I'm 40 years old this year, so I did grow up in a time when my local grocery store, the grocer that was there, knew you by name when you came in to get your daily or your weekly deli order, as it were. Asked about your kids, how they doing in school, and your neighbors took care of each other. And nowadays, that's not the case. And I mean, case in
Yeah.
point, my neighbor across the road used to her son and my son go on the same school bus. And she offered to put my son on the bus because my wife has to work at 8:30 in the morning, and the bus doesn't get there till 8:50. And she decided that no, I'm not going to do this without some sort of financial compensation. So we started paying her, and then she was like, you know what, too much of a hassle, so I'm not going to do it anymore. I got a job, and I just can't do it. It's like, well, thanks for leaving us in a lurch, out of nowhere. We managed to find care, but still, it's like it used to be
Yeah.
a community thing where the community took care of each other.
And that's, yeah. And again, like I pointed towards capitalism. There's other things involved as
So
well,
can I
right?
can I
But
just can I
essentially,
just pop in here for a second?
yeah,
Because I
absolutely.
just
I was just going to let you. Yeah.
just because my ADHD brain, I will forget. I just wanted to go back first of all to um, the point antisocial was making about jarring and canning and saying it's not that expensive to start. The truth of the fact is that it is expensive to start for certain people. The people that would actually are the people that need this stuff, right? There are people that are living off of $50 a month for food, and are relying on food banks and like Joker said, like there are food banks closing everywhere right now. We just went out tonight to fill the free fridges, and every free fridge was closed down. So now those people who are accessing free food don't have it. They're it's ridiculous that saying like I understand that there are people who can afford to can and do that, but and I know there's other ways around it by buying at thrift stores, etc. It's still an expense. Just for me to alone to buy fruit is expensive. We are geared at buying crappy food. That's the cheap food is the crap, right? So we're not getting healthy food.
Yeah, and to your point, Zen, it's actually cheaper to buy a bottle of Pepsi than it is a bottle of water.
And that's,
Exactly.
yeah. And to couple with that, you look at uh, like the differences between Western society, so Canada, United States, even Mexico, compared to the EU. When you look at ingredients, and I'm using that as an example because it couples like the quality of our food, like we're talking about, and the capitalist side, like I said, where here in Western society we have so much garbage in our food in terms of chemicals and fillers and everything else, right? And that's another capitalist aspect where the good food costs more because it costs more to actually produce than it is to just put fillers in with the garbage we eat.
Exactly.
And here we are.
And now we're talking about, the price of meat and the packaging and not weighing it properly, right? So now we're getting ripped off again. And that's the thing is that like, yeah, it's cheaper for me, to well, I'm already a vegetarian by choice, but it's cheaper for me to buy a box of Kraft Dinner and throw some peas in it than it is for me to eat a healthy,
Yeah.
salad. Like it's ridiculous. But I try to do the best that I can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that can be coupled with, we need to I'd say we need to focus more on growing more Canadian. Um, although, I mean, trade agreements, stuff like that, you get into the nitty gritty. But I mean,
Well,
absolutely.
I find it amazing that we can have so many greenhouses for marijuana, but why not for food?
I find that
Well,
No, you're
amazing
right.
too.
yeah, but we can, like, there's nothing,
We can do
with all
both.
due respect, Zen. I don't know your situation, and based on what you're saying, like, I'm certainly sympathetic to it. Like, my wife and I, we do okay, but we still, if we miss a paycheck, it's going to hurt, as it were. I have kids in daycare, kids in school and what have you. I got 4 kids, so it can be a struggle at times. But notwithstanding, like, if information is free, all right, everybody, it doesn't matter what your social circumstance or your economic circumstance is, everybody has a phone, everybody has access to the internet.
Yes.
So therefore, it doesn't matter, and I might seem a little crass on this one, and forgive me, I'm not trying to be a dick about this, but people have the ability to, on the food side of things, people have the ability to grow their own food. There are community gardens in pretty well every community that I've ever come across where you can grow your own food. On the preserving side of things, I get that can be a struggle because a pressure canner is not necessarily the cheapest thing in the world. You're a couple $100 for a pressure canner, which you need in order to preserve certain foods. But there are ways, if you think outside of the box, on growing, preserving, and accessing food that are not conventional. And I think that's where that's the word that detracts from the norms, is the conventional side of things.
But
My wife and I have
as
been.
if you stop and read the chat, okay, that is very ableist. There are many people who have access to it but cannot do it.
Can I be an example of that?
Go ahead.
So in my situation, I would have been a single mom. I would have had 2 toddlers. I was recovering from cardiac arrest. One of those babies was a preemie born at 25 weeks along. And I was poor. There was a community garden. I didn't have the time. A lot of people don't have the time. And that's why I was saying we need to teach these things in school. Not every parent has the ability or the time to pass down these, I'm going to say it, survival skills. And I don't mean that like in a doomsday way, but that's what generations before us did.
Exactly.
The Great Depression.
And the
we
saying
don't
that it
have
takes
it
a
that
village,
hard.
right?
Yes. So we need to change what that village is, because the way society runs now, with 2 parents working, minimum wage not being a living wage, disability not being anywhere close to a living wage, we have to get back to those basics that our great grandparents did in the Great Depression. And the only way we're going to teach our children that is by adding that into school. Put it back into the schools.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We were just having this conversation on my life. Like, Jax, damn it.
Sorry. You were
You're
next,
And
Cody.
I'm
scaring me.
not trying to pass the buck either as a
No,
parent,
no, no.
right?
No.
What I'm saying
No.
is every parent can't.
And this
No.
is,
Right?
and
Right.
And if we want everybody to start off in the
Jax!
country equal footed, we got to start in the schools.
Yeah.
Jax, we can't
And
hear you with your coat rubbing up.
Sorry.
Yeah, all I can
Sorry.
hear is the swish,
no,
swish, swish, swish.
and you're right on, and that's where I'll go back to the point that I made earlier. Zen, Jax, Smarshy, like it's one of those things where yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Is back when we were talking about 30, 40 years ago. The difference is yeah, you had a one most cases, not saying all, but most was a one income home, and there was somebody at home that could do that sort of stuff. And now with the cost of living and how busy we have to be in our lives to be able to survive, let alone
Hmm.
do stuff, right? Because like I consider him a brother. I mean, they both work. The boys, of course, are school age, so they go to school, and like it's not like they don't make good money or anything, but it's like having the time and the extra funds to get into stuff like that in
Mhm.
today's society. It just there isn't enough time for most, especially when
Right
you're
now,
talking
people
about
can't even pay
urban
rent.
cities. Yeah,
But
exactly.
and the thing is,
Can I pose a question to the panel? And for those in the comments, just to be fair, I did grow up dirt poor. Both of my parents decided it would be a good idea to quit their jobs and go back to school with 5 children when I started high school. Okay, I grew up absolutely dirt poor. I'm a tradesman, so because I've been a tradesman for so long, I happen to make decent money. My wife works for the government. We make decent money, but we're not rich by any stretch of the imagination. Do we have some things? Yes, we do, but we're not rich by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm going to ask this to a panel, to the panel, and on the issue of whether it be ableism, food security, life choices, etc. Tell me this: how is it that a 20-year-old person can decide to go against social norms, retrofit their Honda Element into the quote unquote van life, travel all across the continent, and still be able to support themselves through various means, whether it be social media, whether it be some minor online gig economy stuff, and still be able to survive and support themselves? And yet we're seeing people that live in 2-bedroom apartments paying $1,500 a month because they've been living there for long enough that they're not being extorted by the landlord.
So
With 2
yeah,
kids,
not
and
not
they can't support themselves.
but
okay.
that's go ahead, Smarshy.
Okay, first off, antisocial. I love you some days, but right now I want to smack you. Okay, and it's just
Go
because
ahead,
I'm
girl.
hormonal, so fucking let me have at it.
All good, all good. I love you too, Sparshy. It's good to
Okay,
see you.
not today, sir. Not today. I'm not the fucking person to push around today. The fact is, yes, 20-year-olds can do it. There are certain ways to do it, and there's certain people who cannot do that because they don't have. And I'm not. This is not being me being ableist. This is just me being realist. Okay, not everyone has the access to knowledge of what they weren't taught this by their parents. They were coddled. They were given whatever. Not everybody has the means or the opportunity to do what you're saying. I would love to live in a trailer or a small house and give all my shit away, keep the necessities that I need. But unfortunately, my dude, that's not something we can just do on a whim of a hat. Not everyone can afford to do that. And that's the problem we're having. And yes, some people live in 2-bedroom apartments and can barely afford rent. I live I live in subsidized housing, and I am grateful that I live in subsidized housing. But if tomorrow something turned bad and my luck turned out to be, oh, by the way, we sold our units, you're being kicked out, I would not have a place to piss in, let alone a
And
place to cook supper. And it's infuriating when people pose these questions because it's like, oh, well, 20-year-olds can do this. Yeah, a lot of 20-year-olds can't cook macaroni, let alone boil water.
yeah,
So
Yeah,
so
it's
no,
very ableist.
Sparshy,
And that's,
you answered the question correctly, and I asked it in the manner that I did because of what both Jax and Zen had said, is that we need to be teaching this to our kids. We need to be
well,
teaching our kids self-reliance and skills and abilities so that they are not so dependent on a system that's working against them. So I asked the question on purpose, and I appreciate the emotional response, and you're a beauty. I love you too. But you answered it exactly the way that I was hoping you were going to answer it, because this is a systemic problem that we need to be teaching our children, whether it be in the schools or whether it be directly. I know some parents don't necessarily have the time, but we need to be teaching our children to be less reliant on the system, because the system just works against you.
And I want to put a little bit in there, and then we'll do one more round, and I am gonna have to wrap up, guys, unfortunately. But so
Aw.
before I do the round, I want to bring up too, because people need to remember, and I think it adds more context to the conversation. Before the housing crazy hike in, buying a home, um, like people were turning to tiny homes and campers and trailers, doing it that way, and it was an actually fiscal way of doing it for people that
Hey,
didn't have.
Zen, you're
Zen, you
echoing.
got an echo.
Oh, but yeah, it was a feasible way for people that didn't have a large amount of income that could save, get something like that, and it was a cheaper alternative. But once the housing market went the way that it did, more people started to go that route, and it became not affordable. Like, I was looking into doing a tiny home on wheels, and I was looking at, roughly before the way the housing market went, when I was looking at prices, I was looking at, I could do something myself or buy something a bit smaller and cheaper, and put a bit of extra money. But I was looking at 10, 15,000 max for a decent sized tiny home on wheels, and it was livable. Now that same unit is over $100,000, because the want for it, the need for it, um, sorry, the demand is the word I'm looking for it, skyrocketed because of the way the housing market went. More people were looking to do it, which caused the price of that to go up. So the ones that you see, like you use for the example, antisocial, of the ones that just drive around and, like, they live that way. How are they able to live that way? Because they got into that lifestyle when it was cheaper to do so, and now they don't have the bills that we have, right? They don't have the rent, the outrageous rent prices we're paying. They don't have the outrageous mortgage prices that we're paying, because of the way the market went for housing, right? They got in just at the prime time, and they made it work, and the rest of us that were looking to do it are kind of fucked for now, for lack of better words. I apologize for the swearing,
No,
but
No, all good, guys. I am going to drop down. 5
okay.
a.m. comes early, so great
I
to
feel that
see
I got to
everybody's
be up at
Marshy.
1:30, so
what's
Oh,
5
gross,
a.m.?
dude.
It's just a
So,
number.
yeah, well, and I work. I'm a truck mechanic. I work a very
yeah.
physical job. I need my sleep. All right. Plus, I am ugly as
Go
sin.
Cape
So the more sleep
Princess.
that I can get from my beauty is best. Marshy, good to see you. Nice to meet everybody tonight. Have a great evening.
Antisocial, have a
Nice
good one.
talking
Thanks
with
for
you.
coming up and having a conversation.
I love
I,
your
I just
response.
I, I just want to point out too, talking about the boomers,
Mhm.
they are living longer. They are not leaving us anything. Okay,
Nope.
because there was their generation, they got their houses handed down to them. They got their, you know,
Yeah.
I don't like talking about it, but like, yeah, when they died, we got something, right?
hmm
But now it's not that we're living as long as our parents.
hmm
Mm-hmm. Well, and
So
Jen, you make an
that's
absolute.
sorry, I just want to say, and the fact is I'm sitting here going through what I'm going through, and now I'm watching my parents going through it as well. So now I'm having to help them
Yeah.
when I have nothing.
Yeah. No, it's true. I've had a conversation with my mother, not to get too much into detail on it, but I've essentially told her, given the cost of living and everything, and knowing what, she has for funds through her inheritance from my grandparents, like, I don't care about that. I know what the cost of living and everything. I've told her, You're gonna need it to get by and continue to live. So if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. I don't give a damn."
That's
right? I
right.
want you to survive. I want you to enjoy the rest of your life. And if there's nothing there, cool. I just keep living the way I do.
We've had to make that same decision. With Urban's parents, like having to go into homes, yeah, they're going to have to sell their home and live off of that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're not going to see anything. Same with my parents, they right now just have a trailer, and I said, well, leave it to one of the kids. Like, it's not going to be any good for me. Like I would
Mhm.
rather they get it, than,
Yep.
but like it's just
And the only ones that are
these are
seeing
these are things we never thought we would have to deal with.
Mhm. And the only ones that don't have issues with this stuff is the top 10% that are getting the mass amount of inherited wealth
Exactly.
passed down.
Exactly.
So,
I don't care if
Jax,
I got it
Martine?
fast.
You
I
know,
don't care if I. Oh, go ahead, Jax.
sorry, hon. Again, back to time. We got to stop judging people on what they're doing,
Yeah.
because time is a luxury that not everybody can afford, right?
Exactly.
So somebody said the
Absolutely,
thrift
Jax.
store. I'll give another example. I know people judge me because, I won't go to the thrift store. It's not a snobbish thing. My experience in thrift stores is I don't find what I'm looking for my kids or myself. And now I've wasted my time here when I need something because I'm buying something because I need it, not because I
Yeah.
want it.
Right.
So going to Walmart is easier because I know I'm going to get exactly what they need. I know I'm going to get exactly what I need. And time's a luxury. So,
Yeah.
be a little more kind to people.
Well, that's
We're
the
all
thing is
struggling.
everybody has their ways, right? Every
Hmm.
like I thrift like crazy, but that's my way, right? Um, like everybody knows that what works for them the best, and like I said, I don't have to drive, 14, you know, well, I'm going to say an hour and a half for you to go to a store. It's
No,
two
we have
minutes down the
stores here.
road. It's two
But no,
minutes
no,
down
I'm
the road for
speaking
me.
like from living in
Yeah,
Hamilton.
yeah,
Like that's
right,
my experience in Hamilton, right?
right.
And
Yeah,
I didn't drive in Hamilton. I had to take the city bus to that thrift store,
exactly.
right? And yeah, it was time was work, and sometimes
That's right.
convenience is what is keeping someone sane.
And it's
Right.
true. Like I said, everybody's got their own way. I share a vehicle with my mother-in-law, right? Because I can't afford a vehicle of my own, and she needs somebody to drive her to her appointments. So, it works for us. That's what. So I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed of saying to somebody, yeah, I share a car with my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think that's awesome. It
someone.
helps everybody out. That's the way it's supposed to be.
That's right.
Yeah.
And coming back to that whole, um, it takes a village. Yeah, when we were forced out of our house and had to rent, well, we were renting, but I mean, we had to find somebody else somewhere else to rent. I had to come to my community, which was on here, and my community helped me.
Yeah.
I was just floored by the amount of help that we got from our friends on here. And that's this is why we do what we do, and we want to give back. And that's, even today at the grocery store, the guy in front of me forgot his wallet. He had $20, and he's like, oh god, I think I spent more than $20. And I'm like, well, if you did, I'll cover it. And he's just like, no, you don't need to do that. And I'm like, it's going to be a couple bucks, pay it forward later on. It's things like that, right? It's
Well,
doing those things that, um it makes you feel good, it makes them feel good, and it keeps carrying on, right? That feel good keeps
and
going
that
and going, and that's what we need back in whether it's, I get it, we don't know our neighbors anymore, but we do know friends online. If that's how it goes, then that's how it goes.
and that's the thing. Like I've had. I remember it was just last year or the year before. Um, I went to the grocery store and I didn't have enough money for my thing for my like cream for coffee and meat and some vegetables. And this lady's like, "Here, I'm going to give you $100." I'm like, "No, please no. I'll put some stuff back. It's not a big deal." She ended up putting my bill on her bill, and I'm like, "Why would you do that? You don't know me." Like I'm not, and I'm not saying I wasn't
Right.
grateful for what she did, but like. just knowing that, and like ever since then, like yeah, I if someone needs like $50 because they're short on medicine, I'll give them $50 because they're short on medicine. Like it doesn't
Mhm.
matter. They're like, and it was on someone's live. You were there. Absorbed was there, and I can't remember their name. I don't know their
Mhm.
name, and I'm not gonna try to remember. But they said to me, once you give that money to that person, you have no idea or no reason to doubt that you have no reason to ask what that money is being used for,
Exactly.
and that
It's
has
a
stuck with
gift.
me. Right? You're giving that person
Yeah.
money. It's not up to you to dictate what they buy with it, and it's not.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But if someone's like, oh, well, contingency comes to me, I need money for my kids' groceries, I'm like, okay, so I give them money. I don't care what you use it for. Just don't fucking tell me it's for something it's not.
Yep.
If
Right.
you're gonna be honest, be honest. If you're not, whatever. I'll give you the money when I can, and I give
Yeah.
you the money. If you use it for whatever you use it for, that's on you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's not my business anymore. That money has left my account. It's yours.
Yep.
I'm
Exactly.
not gonna I'm not going to be that person that keeps, oh, yeah, my mom does that to me. And I'm like, well, once that money leaves your account, mom, it is now my money. So you don't have say on what it goes for. She goes, well, I didn't give it to you for this reason. I'm like, okay, again, once you've given money to someone, you've gifted money to help that person. And if that person happens to say, okay, I did buy something I shouldn't have bought, I will pay you back when I can, you don't get to scream at them. And that's what I've said to everybody. If you're going to give me money and I use it and I get a little something extra for myself if I have something left over because I'm that kind of person.
Mhm.
I will short myself for to help people, and my mom's like, "Don't do that." My dad's like, "Don't do that." I'm like, "But you guys always told me if you can help, help."
Mhm.
And it frustrates me with my dad, well, my mom especially because she's like, "Well, I help you out all the time," and I said, "Dad, I've offered to give you money." But every time I offer to give you guys money, you guys yell at me and say, no, you need it. And then you guys bitch that I don't pay you back. Or I hear it from the
Well,
family that I don't pay back. Well, talk to them, not me. How about that?
I would much rather somebody tell me the truth. Honestly, I prefer it when I have friends that will say, I could really go for a pizza, and I know that they don't have milk or fresh fruit in their fridge, but if they're gonna say I really want pizza,
Thanks
I'm
for
gonna
coming
give
up,
them
Jack.
that. I would give them the money to get that pizza because I know what it's like. I know what
Mhm.
it's
Right.
like to be like that and just I am craving pizza. Like,
Like
Absolutely.
I've helped people out in my community. Um, I gave this one girl that I know is unhoused, and I don't want to make her feel like I don't want to make it seem like, oh, I'm doing this for clout because that's not what I do. But I gave her a sandwich, and then I made her burger, and I gave her water, and I gave her like stuff I didn't use that I know she could
right,
use, right? Because I don't have enough money to just be like, okay, well here I can't find it in myself to rent a hotel room for someone, not because I don't want to. I don't have the money. Like what
Mhm.
right,
happens if something happens to her and she ends up like passing away, then what, right?
Mhm.
I'm not
yeah,
worried about that. I'm worried about her safety. I'd rather her be somewhere warm. But
yeah,
again, when they ask me to help them financially, I'm like, I can't. And then people get mad at me. They're like, well,
Mhm.
you help everybody else when I can. If I
Mhm.
have the means to help someone, I will.
And
exactly.
that's
That's what it comes down to is if you got it, then yeah, why not?
absolutely, and I think that's one thing. I mean, all of us agree with antisocial. The fact is, community can really help, and having that sense of community is fantastic. Whether it's
Exactly.
within your actual physical community or, like you said, Zen, just your circle,
That's
regardless
right.
of where it is.
Oh yeah,
But I think just to wrap up, guys, I think it's important. Absolutely, we all agree with that, but it's important to look at the issues that lead to why we need to be there for our community. And it comes down to right now the cost of living, which is fueled by greed and the government
corporation.
not
Yeah.
doing enough to,
Oh yeah.
help us everyday Canadians. So
The
I'd
potatoes were
also like to
smaller, so
point
it's Trudeau's fault.
just my last thing. I just want to point out that there are a lot of people who get into a situation that they're not used to being into, and they
mhm,
don't know the roots. They don't, and some people just have the difficulty asking,
mhm,
whether it be mental illness or whatever. They just cannot figure out how to access it, right? So
Yeah.
it's just,
Pride.
just making sure that people, exactly, just making sure people know that there is help out there, and letting them know, here, try this, try that, try this. If they cannot do it, say to them, maybe you have a worker you can talk to, or a doctor, or somebody that can help you with those, reach out to those avenues.
Mhm. Absolutely. And that's the biggest thing, guys, is if you yourself know of resources that can help people that need the help, then absolutely make sure you share that, and let people know where they can go. And like Smarshy said, I mean, I do the same thing, and I think we can all say we do our best to help people when we can. Um, and honestly, I feel it's Smarshy in terms of it sucks when we can't help everyone that needs it. But as long as we all do what we can to help the ones we can, at least we know we're doing our best, and hopefully it gets us through to when we don't need to, rely on each other as much. We still will, of course, be there for community, but it's not something that'll be needed as much, like
Yep.
pointed out earlier about food banks and
Yeah.
all the different programs. So
Exactly. There is, and like I said, and if you can't find some help, maybe start something. Put up a
yeah,
board at a grocery store saying, "Hey, I need this. Is there anybody that's willing to trade?" There's ways of doing things.
yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, guys. I
Okay.
apologize, but
No,
1:30
no.
comes early, so I'm doing snow removal, so I gotta
Uh,
be out there at 3 and getting it done before business is open. So,
oh, fun! Wow. Lucky you. Okay. Well, hopefully you get some sleep.
oh, definitely will. I'll get a couple hours.
Okay. Well, thanks for letting me up.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate everyone
Thanks for
that
having me.
you're welcome,
Goodbye.
guys. I appreciate. Have a good night. I
Good
appreciate
night.
everyone that came up during this episode, guys. I appreciate everyone for being here. Thank you so much for the love. Thank you for all the fantastic conversation, and I look forward to doing it again next week. So until next week, guys, stay safe, have fun, and keep fighting the good fight. Till next time.